Hold on tight for the next hour. You're entering into a place, a zone called the alternative to the alternative media. It's a place, a special place where even truth seekers fear to tread.
All right, people, let's move like we've got a purpose.
Affirmative.
Okay, glad you're back on the Investigative Journal on this, it's March 5th. Greg, you're a month behind. It's April 5th. Keep up with the Joneses, Greg. But anyway, you're on the Investigative Journal. I got two things I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the remarks that Trump said about the border problem with these migrant caravan coming through Mexico, and then also what the Mexican president said in response to Trump, and he says threats, disrespect, unjustified, and that's what he told Donald Trump today. So we'll get to that. But another thing I wanted to do today, kind of switch gears a little bit. Did you ever wonder about buying a car after 9/11 and how it's changed and what they do behind the scenes, these dealers, especially if you want to pay cash? And it's a really interesting story, and so I want to get to that. But let's first talk about what's going on the Mexican border. Okay. Let's put it right out on the table here. I really love the Mexican people. I love the American people. And I think the American people and the Mexican people have the same feelings about each other. It's the orchestrated leaders. And that includes Peña from Mexico and Trump. They're on the same team, the Jesuit team. And all they're doing is getting chaos started between the two people. Now, here's what really annoys me. When people don't understand that, they direct the hatred towards some of the American people, and some of the American people will direct the hatred towards the Mexican people, and that's really crazy. Now, I live near the border, and I go back and forth all the time. And, you know, it's really easy to go into Mexico from America. I can just drive right through. They don't even check your passport. You go right in. But coming into the American side, it isn't difficult either. It's just if you go through near San Diego, where I live, you're going to spend a couple hours on the border if you don't get what's called a Century Pass, which means that's about, $200 for 5 years, and you can get through kind of quick. But anyway, and a lot of times you spend 2-3 hours in that borderline. And then basically what they do is they check your passport and they say, what are you doing? Are you bringing anything from Mexico? No. And where are you going? And you say, I'm going to Chula Vista, or I'm going to San Diego. But when you cross the border a lot of times and you spend time in Mexico, you spend time in San Diego, you can see that the people really, it's really not that much different on the other side of the border, at least in Baja. Okay, so what I'm getting at is this kind of tension that's now happening started over a controlled migration. Now, what I'm saying is that this was orchestrated by probably some of George Soros's people, and they get all these people from Honduras, thousands of them, to make a political statement and test Trump. And now this is all orchestrated behind the scenes. So Peña knows what's going on, Trump knows what's going on, and they each play the others, one plays the good cop, the other plays the bad cop, and they play to their base, right, to their people. But it's an orchestrated event because this migration was orchestrated. They have leaders. Many of these people were rounded up and paid, some of them to come to America. And what they're trying to do is they're coming through Mexico, and then they want to be given asylum, thousands of them at the border, and probably they want to enter somewhere near San Diego, in California, because it's a sanctuary state. And let's read an article that just came out today. And this is April 5th, yesterday, is April 5th. And Mexican President Enrique Peña Nieto lashed out at his U.S. counterpart, Trump, on Thursday amid growing tensions over migration and border security, saying threatening or disrespectful attitudes were unjustified. Now, speaking after Trump ordered National Guard troops to secure the U.S.-Mexican border, the Mexican president vowed Mexico would stand up for itself and suggested the American president was jeopardizing the two countries' relationship for domestic political gain. Quote, If your recent statements are the result of frustration due to domestic policy issues, to your laws, or to your Congress, it is to them that you should turn, not to Mexicans. We will not allow negative rhetoric to define our actions, he said in a national address. U.S.-Mexican ties have been strained since Trump won office on the back of a campaign heavy on anti-Mexican rhetoric. Now, that was orchestrated, definitely orchestrated. And what tension has it caused? Really, the lifestyles of people here or in America haven't changed. But you know what? They're ignoring the real problem, and that is drugs are pouring through, and they're allowing it to happen because the government and the Vatican get a cut. Yeah. So what they have to do is create this chaos so that the real illegal guys can just slip right through. Now, Peña Nieto, the Mexican president, has twice canceled plans to visit Washington after tense phone calls with Trump. You can bet behind the scenes they'll be having a beer together or a tequila, and Trump will have a glass of iced tea. Now, in which the Republican president refused to back down from his insistence that Mexico pay for his planned border wall. Trump's latest attacks on Mexico were triggered by news reports on a caravan of Central American migrants crossing the country towards the United States. This is what we just talked about. The caravan, which numbered more than 1,000 Hondurans, Salvadorians, and Nicaraguans, began breaking up. Now, have you ever been to Nicaragua? I've spent some time there. And let me tell you this. I went to a small town and on the coast near Managua, and it was a beautiful time. Now, there is poverty, but let me tell you something. This effort is orchestrated. Now, if everything was normal in this world, all these countries would have enough to survive, and these people wouldn't want to be coming here anyway. Now, the caravan, which numbered more than 1,000 of these peoples, began breaking up Thursday, and the activists organizing it said it had abandoned its goal of reaching the U.S. border and would end its activities with a rally in Mexico City. So, now, what's going on? The decision came after 4 days of Twitter diatribes from Trump. The U.S. president ordered thousands of National Guardsmen to secure the border and threatened to axe what he called Mexico's cash cow, the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, if the Mexican authorities did not stop the migrants. The ongoing talks on modernizing NAFTA have also strained ties between the two countries as well as Canada. And there comes a call in, but we'll take it later. The third member of the agreement, though the three countries have recently indicated they are close to reaching a new deal. So what's the problem? We are convinced that by coming to agreements as friends, partners, and good neighbors, both countries will fare better than if we confront each other. We stand ready to negotiate, certainly, but always based on mutual respect. So we have this war of words, but in the end, the Vatican-led New World Order will get its way. Yes. And pretty soon, Mexico, Canada, and America will be one anyway. And one world government, one world order. All right. Enough with that, right? So I want to switch gears. If we lived in the time of the American Revolution, we would not worry about automobiles, right? We'd be riding on horseback. Now, in the old days, when you buy a horse, you can do some, good horse trading. You can buy it. You can trade a horse for a cow. You can trade a horse for a sheep. You can give a person cash. You can give him corn. You can give him what you can trade. You can barter. You can pay with money. And the government has nothing to do with it. Right? So what's the difference if you buy a car today? And how many of us can live without a car? Nobody anymore, right? I wish we'd go back to horse and buggy. We'd be a lot better off. And the horses would feel a lot better too because they'd be given back some dignity, right? And anyway, so what's happened in buying a car? Now here's the deal. Okay, I don't care what price range you're in. If you're in a $10,000 range, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, $100,000, $150,000, you're going to buy a car. Okay? And when you go to a dealer to buy a car, you want to buy a new car. So what? Buy a new car. And the economy's getting better, right? So you want to buy a car. So you go into the dealer and you decide, well, I don't want to get screwed with all these deals they do when you finance. I don't want to run my credit. I want to buy the car. I want to pay good hard-earned money and give it to you. So let's just use a car, for example, over the $10,000 range. Let's say it's $50,000. Let's say it's $100,000. Now, I'm going to show you what these dealers are trying to do, as well as what the government's trying to do with your rights when you're buying a vehicle. And I don't want you to get screwed over when you go to the dealer. Now, here's what I mean. Buying a car is not the same after the 2001 9/11 event. Now, what to do when this happens if you want to, when you go to car dealers, they want to check your background when you pay cash. Now, why? It would be a simple deal. Well, first of all, there's a government hounding them. And second of all, they don't know the law. And thirdly, if you finance, which they want you to do, they can sneak in so many different things that you end up paying for things you really don't want. And plus, you got to pay finance agreements and all of this stuff. So if you're lucky to have cash, and I wish, and still people buy with cash, but why do they want to check your background so much now? And especially since 9/11. Interesting, right? And I'm going to tell you why. And here's why. Let's start out. For years, I've received questions from car buyers, and the reason is because I was in the law business, and I used to deal with this area of the law, consumer protection. And car buyers would ask why the car dealer wants them to fill out a credit application when they're paying for their car with cash or a cashier's check. Ludicrous. The customer wants to know why the dealer's suspicious action is requiring them to fill out a credit app. Because after all, you are paying cash and not applying for a new car financing of any type or any loan. So why do you have to give them anything outside of, hey, this is me, here's my driver's license, and goodbye, I'd like to have the car. Now, we used to say cash is king. This was before 2001, though, and 9/11, when buying a new car. But sometimes it adds to complications now. In this car buying scenario, you're out car shopping, for example, and decide you want to avoid financing your new car purchase. And instead, you want to pay cash, or a cashier's check, or even a personal check, because after all, cash is king. And by the way, car salesmen and dealership finance managers hate it when you pay cash. You know why? Because it robs them of the additional profit of selling car financing, and for dishonest salespeople, it removes all the shells in their cash flow shell games. Now, they cannot pack your non-existing car payments with needless extras when you pay cash, right? If you're not financing through the dealer, then unscrupulous car dealers cannot play their shell games and hide the fact that they just stuffed a $3,000 warranty in your deals spread out and amortized into 84 monthly payments. Because guess what? There are no monthly payments. Car salesmen will try to do everything they can to stop you from using your own financing because they want the car loan commission. By paying with cash, you also won't fall victim to their financing fell through, come back and re-sign new papers, weeks later, because there is no financing, no car loan, you paid cash. We are hearing from more and more car buyers all the time who are slapped upside their face with this spot delivery financing fell through scam. Now, government clamping down on doing business with banned people. Now, this is interesting. In the wake of September 11, you don't think that the tentacles of 9/11 have even spread to you buying an automobile? Now, the United States government decided it wanted to really push hard to prevent certain criminal minds from being able to launder money from here to overseas. Now, why don't they go to the Vatican? Why don't they, how many times these criminal minds are right in the government and in the Vatican? They're laundering money. That's okay. But they want us to think that an average Joe, a guy who, works his butt off, goes in to buy a car for cash, is actually a criminal mind, and they put him through hell just to buy a car. And also, that reminds me, what about when you go to an airport nowadays? You know, it's ridiculous. You got to take your shoes off. They go through, the search for every part of you. You can't take this on, you can't take that. While they're allowing the criminals to do whatever the hell they want. It's more a control of the average, honest, working, hard-working people. Now, they say, well, listen, they don't want these cars to go overseas or to put guns, ammunition, vehicles, and other property into the hands of terrorists. Yeah, I'm going out to buy my little Prius, and I'm going to pay cash for it, and it's going to go in the hands of one of the ISIS terrorists. You're going to see him, with his little, black bandana driving down the street in my Prius. Now, here's the deal. In addition to businesses, I would highly suggest that if you ever sell a car privately or anything else of value, okay, you should also make sure the person you are dealing with is not sanctioned or blocked. Now, here's the deal. Let me talk about this. Let me go straight through this. In fact, on September 24th, 2001, I'm going to get right to this, okay? September 21st, 2000. Okay, let me go back and talk here. Now, in fact, on September 24th, 2001, President Bush signed into effect his Executive Order 13224, blocking property and prohibiting transactions with persons who commit threats to commit or support terrorism. In other words, we are all required to do our best to prevent the bad guys from obtaining cash or property. Now, in addition to businesses, I would highly suggest that if you ever sell a car privately or anything else of value, should you make sure the person you're dealing with is not sanctioned or blocked? Wouldn't you feel terrible? This is how crazy this is getting. I'm going to sell my Ford 150 pickup, and I'm going to go through the government OFAC SDN list now, right? Yeah, I'll be doing that. But that's, what they're telling you to do now. So you go to buy a used car, and they're going to say, okay, I'll sell you the car, but I got to put you through the OFAC SDN list. And I'm going to get to that in a minute. Now, I'm not going to do it, just not going to do it. This weeding out of bad guys, they say, is best accomplished with the help of OFAC's lists of annexed people, the standard that all businesses use. What is this OFAC list? OFAC. What does a terrorist list have to do with you or me? Dealers are required now to bounce your name off the OFAC SDN list. This all sounds like a brand, soup of complications, but I'll educate you on this real fast, and it's quite easy. The Office of Foreign Assets Control is a division of the U.S. Department of the Treasury, and they administer and enforce economic and trade sanctions against certain foreign countries and regimes, terrorists, drug traffickers, people involved with weapons of mass destruction, and other threats to the United States. The OFAC publishes on their site a frequently updated list, currently over 1,000 pages long, of these banned people and groups called the Specially Designated Nationals and Blocked Persons List. Everyone calls it the SDN. You remember how Santa Claus is making a list and checking it twice? Don't forget, Santa maintains a list of who has been naughty and who has been nice. And so does OFAC with their SDN list. And here we go with lists. To buy a car, can you imagine this? Can you imagine? Their very long and extensive SDN list contains all the folks around the world who have been naughty, so that we are not allowed to do business with them. Whoa. That would cut out the whole Congress, the whole executive branch, top executive leaders of the United States and foreign leaders, everyone at the Vatican, all Jesuits. It's crazy. But they're not on the list. The criminals aren't on the list. I wonder how many innocents are on there. Businesses such as car dealers are required now by law to bounce your name off OFAC SDN list and make sure you're not a terrorist or some other person banned from doing business. The penalty for non-compliance of the OFAC SDN list is huge. And the OFAC fines numerous entities every month. They fine people. Now they're making money off this. Here, how can they fine you? So I'm going to go and buy a car. And if they don't run me through OFAC, they're going to get fined. Here's a sample. I'm looking at a sample of the SDN list. And all it is names. Now, I'm going to say something here. There's no social security numbers, no nothing. Just names, and that's important. And OFAC's specially designated nationals SDN list of blocked persons. As you look at the specially designated nationals list, I really want you to notice that nowhere do you see any social security numbers on the list. It's just names. This is because many of the folks are nationals, not in our country, and don't have social security numbers. Keep this in mind for when we talk about car dealers wanting your social security number. This is important. You don't have to give it to them. The OFAC made it easy for you to check the names of people you are dealing with, for example, when selling your car privately as well. On their site, they have a link to the specially designated nationals list. You might as well check to see if you're on it. Go ahead. One more thing to worry about in America, right? What a country. The OFAC may have other sanctions lists as well that the car dealer can check and make sure they don't get a hit, which is a name match with someone on the list. Now, what happens if somebody's got my name? What if you're John Smith? Incredible. There are also third-party software and service platforms that automate this process for car dealers to confirm you are not a terrorist. You get vetted buying a new Corvette even. Isn't that crazy? You get vetted for buying a new Vet. Government's everywhere, folks. Everywhere. Everywhere, and it's going to get worse. Going to get worse. And I got about 2 minutes here, and we're going to come back and talk about reasons why the dealer does not need your social security number to check your OFAC list. So if they ask, and I'm going to get into the technicalities here, because it's important. Everybody needs a car, right? And little did we know, they're checking to see if you're on a terrorist list when you go buy a new vehicle. Unreal. Unbelievable. And that's America. And you know what? The dealers even make it worse. And I'm going to get into that in a minute. Because anytime a dealer is going to ask you for the social security number or a credit report when you don't want to finance, you don't have to give it to them. And you can just tell them, look, this is the law, and if you don't follow it, I can go to another dealer that understands it. It's that simple. So anyway, I'm going to get back to that in the second half hour on the Investigative Journal, but I do want to mention, before I leave, I represent a company that's really great for your health and wealth. It's hemp for health and wealth. Get on the hemp revolution because that product is really good. I represent a company who sells some of the best hemp oils on the market. They're well priced, and I checked it out thoroughly. And these are some of the best to help your health. And if you want to make a little bit of money, they'll help your wealth too, because you can be a sales associate with this company for absolutely no charge at all, no risk at all. So contact me at Greg Beacon, that's Greg, B like boy, EACON @gmail.com, and I will get you hooked up with this company. So don't hesitate, call, because it really will help you. I've tried it, used it now for almost a little over a month, and it's helped me a lot. So if it can help me, it can help you. And anyway, come back to the Investigative Journal every Monday through Friday, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. The show that's been called the alternative to the alternative news, because we don't just stop with governments and Illuminati. We go right to the heart of the beast. That's in Rome, the Vatican, back in 3 minutes on the Investigative Journal.
The program you are listening to is 100% sponsored by you, the listener, on this First Amendment Rights Media channel. You will notice that there are few commercials on this radio network. There's a good reason for that. Corporate advertising dollars come with strings that limit program content. So without your help, these programs cannot continue on Internet or our several affiliates. If you benefit by the educational law programs, we ask you to give. If you are admonished or nurtured by the Bible and ministry programs, we ask you to give. If some voice a cause that you are passionate about, we ask you to give. If you believe in any of these, we ask you to support them as you would a missionary on a continual basis, as if giving a tithe for missionary radio. These programs are not commercially viable and must be supported by those faithful to the cause of truth. Look for the button to sponsor your favorite programs at our listen and schedule pages on the internet. Then, when you subscribe, we will send you the last quarterly MP3 CD of that program immediately, and continue to do so with each new quarter. We will also give you unlimited archive access to all of our programs. We're asking you to give much less than a tithe, so that you may also send support directly to a particular program host, cause, and anywhere else the Spirit may lead you. Do all to the glory of our God and Creator, for His holy nation, the only kingdom that will last forever. Thank you for listening.
The book of Revelation says, "The spirit of prophecy is the testimony of Jesus Christ." This is at the very heart of FirstAmendmentRadio.com. In that spirit, we have created the Prophecy Reality News app for all of your mobile devices, streaming First Amendment Radio 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Available for your Apple, Android device, and smartphone, absolutely free. Get the Prophecy Reality News app installed today so you can listen to First Amendment Radio wherever you are. The Prophecy.
Hi, Greg Anthony here from the Investigative Journal, and I've never steered you wrong before when it comes to talking about the truth regarding your political and social worlds you live in. And I don't plan on steering you wrong today when I say get involved in the hemp revolution, hemp for health and wealth. I know of some of the best hemp oils on the market. If you haven't tried them, you have to. And pay attention, they're lab tested. So contact me, Greg Anthony, at gregbeacon@gmail.com. That's Greg Beacon, G-R-E-G, like boy, E-A-C-O-N.com. And I'll hook you up with some of the best hemp products on the market. And if you want to become a sales associate and make some money selling hemp to your friends and family, do that. Contact Greg Anthony at the Investigative Journal, Greg Beacon at gmail.com, Greg Beacon at gmail.com.
The following program is labeled dangerous and off limits by the supreme Jesuit command. But stand tall, people. Listen up, and you may just learn something.
Oh, dear Lord Jesus, this ain't happening, man. This can't be happening, man. This ain't happening.
Okay, we're back for the second half hour, and we're going over what really goes on now when you buy an automobile. It's incredible. But let me get to the point here. It's going to be a little complicated, but I think you can follow me. Dealers really, first of all, do not need your social security number to check OFAC list. So when you buy a car with cash, you don't need to give them your social security number for this reason and for another I'll get to. All they need is your name, not a number. And I've showed you that earlier. If you're paying cash and the car dealer checks your name against the OFAC list, you can easily see that they don't need your social security number. So this is why I say it's bogus when they force you. So don't let them force you to fill out a credit application when you pay cash. You don't need it. Why? Makes no sense. Now, other unscrupulous dealers lie and say the Patriot Act requires you to fill out a credit application. Now, isn't that ridiculous? The Patriot Act requires me to fill out a credit application, which is just a flat-out lie. Also, the OFAC requirements were in place years before the Patriot Act. Ever since the early 2000s, we are giving you these tips. I remember this well. Have received complaints from car buyers telling us the dealer told them it is required by the Patriot Act when they pay cash. It's not. We warned about this scam in a previous show I did. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago. But anyway, in that show, we advised how to get a downloadable copy of the Patriot Act and how to search it, and there, of course, is nothing in that file, all that huge Patriot Act, which was actually written before 9/11, so they must have known 9/11 was coming. And it was written by a Jesuit lawyer at Georgetown from Vietnam, Vinh Dinh. And you say there's no Jesuit connection. Okay, file referring to car dealers and credit applications. It's just a lie some of them like to make up because it sounds believable to most people. We suspect, and I suspect, that some of these morally challenged salespeople are just trying to trick car buyers into financing through the dealer and earn a little more profit and commission, or running an unnecessary credit check on cash buyers to sway them into car financing instead of paying cash. Don't let this happen to you. The IRS, now listen, this is interesting, says you are not paying cash if your check or cashier's check is over $10,000. Now this is some things you have to understand. Seems strange, doesn't it? Of course, any cash over $10,000 nowadays requires IRS Form 8300 to be filled out, which is how they trap cash buyers trying to illegally move money around, right? I call it structuring, where you have to say $15,000 in cash, but you illegally structure the deal as, say, 75 cash, 75 in a check to avoid the 10,000 cash rule. But the IRS is onto you. They know what you did many times. So it's a strange game the government is playing here. They are trying to trap people attempting to fly under the radar who are using cash or cash equivalents under 10 grand. But the House always wins. They have traps set in place. The IRS says that if you show up with a mixture of cash and a cashier's check totaling over $10,000, they treat it all as cash, and Form IRS 8300 must be filled out. But for your personal checks and cashier's checks larger than $10,000, which most car purchases are likely to be, the IRS does not consider those as cash, because presumably your bank has already filled out the required forms to the U.S. Treasury's FinCEN via Form 112. You get that now? Dealers need to know the IRS requirements on cash transactions. What we are trying to do here, what I'm trying to do is help you prove to the car dealer that they don't need your Social Security number if your cashier's check is over $10,000. Just show them the rules from the IRS. Some of these car dealerships, folks, are just not versed properly in the rules. I'm not just blowing hot air here. Here's a little bit I'll read to you from the IRS publication 1544, reporting cash payments over $10,000. And what it really says, and I'll make it really simple, is that any transaction with a cashier's check or a check over $10,000 is not considered cash because it's already been checked by your bank. Okay? So you don't need to do any more checks. Plain and simple. IRS publication 1544, reporting cash payments over $10,000. It's not cash. Now, you can clearly see that a cashier's check, bank draft, traveler's check, or money order with a face amount of more than $10,000 is not treated as cash. These items are not defined as cash, and you do not have to file Form 8300 when you receive them. Because if they were brought with currency, the bank or other financial institution that issued them must file a report at FinCEN Report 112. There you go. Right there, the IRS just told the car dealer that any check over $10,000 is not cash. So the dealer does not have to fill out Form 8300 and thus does not need your Social Security number. All they need is your name, because that is all the SDN list has on it, are names and nothing else. Sounds a little bit complex, but the result is simple. If your combination of cash and a cashier's check is over $10,000, the IRS wants Form 8300 filled out, and then the car dealer would indeed need your Social Security number. But it should only be directly filled out on the Form 8300 and not on a credit application. Hold that car dealer accountable. See the sample, the IRS Form 8300 below. So you're getting the cash or cashier's check is over. That's as simple as explanations as I can make. Now, when you don't pay with hard cold cash, just use a simple cashier's check don't pay with hard cash. Use a simple cashier's check over $10,000, and if possible, this avoids the requirement to fill out 8300, Form 8300. Now, there's no reason for them to ask you to fill out a credit app or ask for your social. If they try to force you to fill out a credit application against your will, simply leave. You don't have to buy the car from them. You can find a less aggressive dealer who will sell you a car without forcing you to fill out a credit application. If you decide to fill out the credit app, then somewhere near your signature, write down on the paperwork that you are not applying for financing and they do not have the permission to pull your credit. If they squawk about it, then you know they were gaming you all along. Remember that car dealers are subject to some strict regulations, but they are only required to check your name against the government's list of blocked people. This requirement does not involve them making you fill out a credit app. It involves comparing your name to a bunch of bad guys' names on that list. Be firm and keep the salespeople accountable and always on the defensive with this. Tell them to prove to you how filling out a credit application is required. Have them show you the exact statute that requires you to fill out a credit application. Tell them to put it in writing because you want to show it to your state's Attorney General's office for comment. I'm sure all you here are, understand this, and you'll get a song and a dance from the car dealers. But stand tall, stand strong. This is concrete evidence that you can use. Now, we've shown in this short little presentation what they give is just a scam, and you should call them on it. What you have seen when you are shopping if you're shopping for a new car, let me know on the Investigative Journal. I want to thank Jeff Ostroff, a consumer advocate. He's the founding editor of CEO of Car Buying Tips for this valuable information. And I've checked it out thoroughly in the law books too, and there is no requirement for you to even give them a social security number or anything when you pay with a cashier's check over $10,000 for a new car or a used car. And it's not considered cash by the IRS because your bank has already filled out the FinCEN form. So thank you, Jeff Ostroff, for that really good information, because we all need to buy a car every now and then, don't we? So anyway, let me get back to some more important things here on the Investigative Journal. Okay, let's end this show. I'm going to turn it over to a little presentation I heard. I always like to talk about Jesuit intrigue, and I got a few minutes here. So this guy's name is David Carrico. He was interviewed on Truth Frequency Radio about the Jesuits. Here we go.
Old history out of anybody I know, and his name's David Carrico. David Carrico, welcome to the show, brother.
He's
right,
muted.
He's muted there.
I think he's muted.
I think he must be. But today we're going to talk, while he gets his stuff under control here, we're going to talk about the Jesuit false prophet connection and how it all plays into this new world religion that we're going to see in the future. And the Jesuits, for those of you who don't know, the new Pope is a Jesuit. The Vice President running on Hillary's ticket is a Jesuit. There's people who have infiltrated in all corners of the government. So, David, do we have you on yet?
Can you hear me now, gentlemen?
We hear
Absolutely.
you loud and clear.
All
right, David, you've been on Truth Frequency Radio before with Rob Skiba, and you're actually going to be going on right after this show with Sean Carone, which is really exciting. And oddly enough, we have Sean Carone and you coming on later on Now You See TV. So David's going to be on air for 6 hours today. So he's got a long day ahead of him, but I can tell you right now, the guy could talk for 12 hours straight, and you wouldn't hear the same thing over and over again. So it's really amazing, amazing guest, and we're thankful to Sean Carone also for having David Carrico on, because David Carrico is one of our like I said, one of our top researchers that we know. And so, David, for the people that are listening that do not, know who you are, which I'm sure there's a few, tell them a little bit about yourself before we get into the subject.
Well, thank you so much for your kind words. I don't know of any two fellows in the multiverse that I'd rather be hanging out with than you two. And my wife, Donna, and myself, we run Followers of Jesus Christ Ministries in Evansville, Indiana. Our website is FOJCRadio.com, and there we have a 24-hour internet radio, and our flagship broadcast takes place Sunday morning at 10 a.m., where we have a church service for those that feel disenfranchised from the religious establishment, and many things that we've dealt with, many subjects, many topics. There's all kinds of information there on our website, and we've just been so blessed with all of the projects we've been able to. Now you see TV, now you see radio, and I can't even see the radio. It looks like a computer, but anyway, I'm just so thrilled with everything the Lord's doing. I'd rather burn out than rust out. So, I'm just so thankful for everything the Lord does.
Man, we keep rolling, man. That's the way it works. Like Moses rode until you just walk to his grave, basically, up there on the mountain. So that's the way we're gonna try to keep doing. Just keep on rolling until it's over with. So, but we appreciate all the stuff you do, and I know you've been through a ton of stuff, and you've had your life threatened multiple times because of the stuff you do. You've had friends you've seen come up dead and come up with all this stuff because of the things that you're into, because of the things you expose. And we definitely respect you for continuing going and in the face of all of this oppression, continuing just to bust out all these injustices and horrible things that have been going on. So let's talk about the subject a little bit. You wanted to talk about the Jesuits and the infiltration that they've done throughout the country and throughout the world, really. And you also wanted to talk about how they connect to the false prophet that it speaks about in Revelation. So let's talk a little bit about that. Open us up and let us know what this subject is about.
Well, when I was watching the first appearance Tim Kaine made with Hillary Clinton, and Tim Kaine began to talk about how he was raised and taught in a Jesuit school, and he says, is there any Jesuits out there? Everyone applauds. I love the Jesuits. And I thought, oh, here we go. And whatever you might think of Mr. Trump, it's very clear that the elitists definitely want to enthrone Hillary Clinton and Kaine. And when Mr. Kaine began talking about the Jesuits, oh boy, the connections are just extremely frightening. And a lot of people regularly ask me, one of the questions that I get asked the most is, do you believe that Pope Francis is the false prophet? And I have taught for a long time that I believe the false prophet, the second beast of Revelation 13, will be one of the popes of Rome. And my response is, if Pope Francis is not the false prophet, it's like he's in a I want to be the false prophet contest. He's doing everything that we would expect the false prophet to do. And what I really find alarming is that now they are beginning to attribute miracles to Pope Francis, and some of the most disturbing kind. Something took place on March 21st of 2015 in Naples, and there the coincidence, and of course there's no Hebrew word for coincidence, and I don't have a word for it either. I don't believe in coincidences. And March 20th on the Satanic calendar is the equinox feast day. And on the 21st, the Pope was in Naples, Italy, and they have a monstrance there that has an ancient relic in it where they had a Eucharistic miracle. And when the Pope kissed this monstrance, the powdered blood that was inside this monstrance liquefied, and it turned to liquid right in front of all the onlookers there. And of course this was heralded as a great miracle that the Pope performed. But knowing the position that Pope Francis is in for this kind of a miracle, especially connected with this changing of the blood, this is just what we would expect to see of the kind of the miracles that the false prophet will perform to deceive many. And my personal conviction, because of something that my wife believed the Lord showed her, is that the final worship of the false prophet is going to be a mass that will be a Luciferian mass. Basically, the present mass of the Catholic Church is going to be replaced, and there will be a Luciferian mass where the actual bread and the wine turns into real flesh and blood. So when I see things like this taking place, it really catches my attention, and I begin to get very concerned. And now, with Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine, just openly, I mean, nothing veiled. I mean, he is leading a cheering section for the Jesuits, and I think this should make us all really stop and pay attention.
I agree. You know, I look at the Jesuits, and I've done a lot of research on them as well. There's way more Jesuits in power and in churches that are supposed to be regular Christian churches, than most people know. I used to play in a Christian hip-hop group, and we played shows, and we did stuff like that at a lot of churches, and we're talking 50% of the churches that I was in, you would see this Jesuit symbolism, this altar. It was almost like an altar set up for their fraternal symbols on this stuff. So it's deep. It's not something that is, just here and there. There's Jesuit colleges set up, and there's a huge one in New Orleans. They're all over the place, really, and a lot of people have been involved in these organizations. And so, David, I'd like to hear a little bit about your research into, I know that recently there was a reset event that happened, and it was trying to happen, and I think the first one got shut down, but they're happening all over the country now. People are trying to do this reset thing. There's people involved, the Pope's involved in this. There's a lot of stuff that is counter to what the Scripture says going on at this stuff. There's stuff that is completely anti-biblical, and of course that's what the church has almost become anyway. And there's no wonder so many people are leaving it. How have they infiltrated the church, and what kind of doctrines are they spreading through there?
Well, the reset event in Washington, D.C., just on the surface, was disturbing enough when you realize that they're looking to a man like Pope Francis. He was beamed in on the big screen to give the keynote speech there, and just knowing that anyone that knows anything about Catholicism knows that Catholicism opposes the true gospel. They don't uphold it. So just on that level, that's disturbing. And on just the level that the Hillsongs group were leading the worship, when they have now openly have gay and lesbian worship leaders, and Brian Houston, you can hear his own remarks on the internet defending that, saying that, if we would do anything with them, we would be judging them. But in an even deeper way, if that isn't disturbing enough, in an even deeper way, the obelisk, the Washington Monument, the Washington Masonic Monument, as they now openly call it, and its relationship with the Capitol Dome and the reflecting pool. Now, anyone that just takes the briefest time to just visually compare them, the Vatican with the Dome of the Vatican and the obelisk in St. Peter's Square, it's an exact representation. The Capitol and the Washington Monument were specifically designed to reflect the Vatican and the obelisk in St. Peter's Square. And the reflecting pool there is a element of ritual magic that is meant to amplify this. And this is nothing less than an enthronement. It's nothing less than opening up a gateway for supernatural powers to come through. It's in the dome of the Capitol they have the apotheosis of George Washington, which means basically George Washington becoming a god. And what a lot of people don't know is that 4 hours before George Washington died, he sent his slaves across the river to bring back a Jesuit priest. And I believe that his name was Father Leonard Neal. And 4 hours before Washington died, he had this Jesuit priest baptize him into the Jesuit order. And there were two brothers. I believe that there were the Carroll brothers. One was the signer of the Declaration of Independence, and one was one of the signers of the Constitution. And they donated the land that the Capitol now sits on. And one of the Carroll brothers was the first president of Georgetown University, and Georgetown sits on that original tract of land that was divided up to give a place to build the Capitol. So this is very much by design. It's not by accident. It's just like FDR said, the things that happen do not happen by accident. So when we understand that here we have, and I also firmly believe, just like the apotheosis of George Washington, I have also taught for years that the first beast of Rep 13 will be one of the presidents of the United States, the second one being one of the Pope. So when we see this Restart America conference going on, and we have this Washington, D.C., Rome connection, with them bringing in the Pope right by the largest phallic symbol in the world.
Okay, I want to continue, but I'm all out of time today. And come back tomorrow on the Investigative Journal on FirstAmendmentRadio.com. Good night.
Since the beginning of time, kings have sought it, nations have fought for it. It has been traded, it has been borrowed, it has been purchased, it has been stolen. There's a reason for it. To secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. Invest with the security of gold and silver. Call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188 or visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net. Listen to Financial Survival with your host Melody Cedarstrom right here on FirstAmendmentRadio.com at 4 p.m. Eastern or 1 p.m. Pacific Time. Visit discountgoldandsilvertrading.net or call Discount Gold and Silver Trading at 1-800-375-4188. Toll free 1-800-375-4188.